Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to unwind the chapter 9 Blackwood House. We shall go through the warm up section at first. Have you read or heard any ghost stories? Discuss the common features of ghost stories with your partner. You can talk about the location, the plot, the mystery, the sound effects, the atmosphere and the environment, the central character, the supernatural elements, the elements of fear. So, you might have heard a lot of ghost stories, right? It's an interesting topic to discuss or talk. That's also right. You can discuss the ghost stories you have heard with your partner, or you can imagine. You can imagine a ghost story of your own and discuss about it, its location, its plot, its mystery, its sound effects, its atmosphere and environment, the central characters of that ghost story, the supernatural elements of that, the elements of fear. So, you can discuss these all with your partner or friend. Okay, so you can do it yourself. So, the name of the chapter is Blackwood House, and the chapter is in the form of a play. The central characters of the play are Mr. Cooper, an estate agent, and Dr. Norton, who wants to buy a property. At the beginning of the play is a setting of the office of Mr. Cooper, the estate agent. Time is about 10 in the morning. Mr. Cooper is writing at his table. There starts a conversation between Mr. Cooper and Dr. Norton. That is what we are going to see at the beginning of the play. So, Dr. Norton walks into the office of Mr. Cooper. Here the conversation starts. Norton, good morning. Are you Mr. Cooper? Norton wishes Mr. Cooper and asks his name. He confirms his name to Mr. Cooper. Cooper, standing up, I am. Please sit down. They both sit. What can I do for you? Mr. Cooper asks Mr. Dr. Norton to take his seat and what help he can give for Dr. Norton. Norton, I'm Dr. Norton. I'm coming to live and work in Overwood and I'll need a house. Norton says, I'm Dr. Norton and I'm coming to live and work. I'm coming to live and work in Overwood, this place. And I need a house to live. Cooper, I understand. Would you like to buy a house? Then Cooper says, yes, I understood. So you want to buy a house from me, right? Norton, yes, if it doesn't cost too much. Norton says, yes, I want to buy a house, but it doesn't cost too much. I don't want to buy a house that costs too much. I want to buy a cheap house. Cooper, well, the prices are going up. Then Cooper says, that's okay, but the prices are very high nowadays. Norton, can you give me an idea of the prices? Then Dr. Norton asks, so can you give an idea of the prices of the houses nowadays? The current situation of the prices of the houses? Cooper, he points to a notice on the wall. The owner wants £5,500 for that house. Then Mr. Cooper points a notice on the wall of his office and says the owner of the and points a house. He points a house and he says the owner of that house wants £5,500. Norton, oh, that's too much for me. Isn't there anything cheaper? Norton says, the price of that house is too much. I can't afford that And is there any cheaper house? Cooper, how much are you willing to pay? Then Cooper asked Norton that how much you can pay for a house. What is your budget? Norton, well, about 2,000, perhaps a little more. Norton says, well, I can pay about 2,000 and a little more. Little more I can pay. Cooper, well, most of the houses here cost more than 6,000. Then Cooper says, but most of the houses in this place cost more than 6,000. Your limit is 2,000, but here you need to pay. If you want a house in Overwood, you need to pay more than 6,000. Norton, that's far too much, but I must find somewhere to live. He points to a notice. What's that? Norton says, the price is very high, but still I need to find a house to live here. I need to find a house here itself in Overwood. He points to a notice and asks, what's that? Cooper, that's Blackwood House, but you don't want that, of course. Cooper says, that's Blackwood House, but you don't want that house. You don't need that house. Norton, why? What's the matter with it? Where is it? Norton asks, why? What is the matter with that house? Where is that house? Cooper, in the middle of the town. Cooper says, the house is located in the middle of the town. Norton, perfect. How much is it? Then Norton says, that's perfect. I need that house. How much is it? Cooper, £1,000. Cooper says it costs £1,000. Norton, is that all? That's not too much. That's not much. Why is the price so low? He is surprised to hear the price of that. Norton is surprised to hear the price of that house, and he asks, that's not much. Why is the price that much low? Cooper, it hasn't always been as low as that. Mr. Wally wanted £4,000 at first. Then the price fell to £3,000. Now it's at £1,000, but no one wants that house. Cooper says, it hasn't always been as low as that. Mr. Warley the owner of the house wanted 4,000 at first. Then the price fell down to 3,000. Now it costs £1,000, but still nobody wants to buy that house. Even though the house costs cheaper, nobody wants to buy that house. Cooper, well, the truth is here Cooper hides something. Norton, is it in a terrible state? Is there anything wrong? Norton asks, is there anything wrong? Cooper, oh no, it's in good order. But there are some strange stories about Blackwood House. The owner, Miss Wally, died in the house 2 years ago. She wasn't a happy woman, but she loved Blackwood House, and people say that she comes back in the night to visit her old home. Here Cooper says, no, there is no problem, not that much problem, but some strange stories are about this house. This is Blackwood House. The owner of that house, Miss Wally, died about 2 years ago. And she was not a happy woman. She was not happy when she lived. But she loved this Blackwood House. And people says that she comes back at night to visit her old home. Norton, what? 2 years after her death? Norton asks. He's surprised. What? 2 years after her death? Is she comes after her death? Cooper, yes, she always wore a white dress when she was alive, and several people think that they have seen the white visitor, as they call her. Cooper says, yes, she usually wore white dress when she was alive. But now also, people says that she comes at night after her death. She still wears that white dress. So the people calls her visit. The ghost of Miss Warley act as white visitor. Norton. Well, I don't believe in that kind of thing. Can I see the house? Then Norton says, well, I don't believe in ghosts or such kinds of things. And I want to see the house. Cooper, sure, but you must not buy that house, Dr. Norton. And Cooper says, yes, sure, I will show you the house, but I suggest you don't need to buy that house, Dr. Norton. Norton, please take me to see it now. Then Dr. Norton says, I want to see the house now itself. Cooper, sadly, if you wish. They go out together. Cooper says, yes, if you want to see the house now, we shall go and see the house now. Now we are going to see scene 2, the same office. An hour later, Dr. Norton and Mr. Cooper walk in and sit down. The setting is the same office of Mr. Cooper. Here the conversation starts. Norton, well, I like the house. It's big enough for me and it's in a very good place. Dr. Norton and Mr. Cooper visited the Blackwood House. After visiting the Blackwood House, they came back to the office of Mr. Cooper. And Norton says, well, I like the house. It's not that much big for me. It's big for me, big enough, but I need that house. It's a very good place. Cooper, don't buy it. If you do, you'll be sorry. I have another house. But Cooper says, please don't buy that house. If you buy that house, you will regret for your decision. You will suffer for your decision. I will show you another house. Norton, how much is it? Norton says, how much I can pay for another house? Cooper says, 6,000. Cooper says, 6,000 pounds. Norton, well, I can't afford it. I'll buy Blackwood House. Who is the owner? Well, I cannot afford. I don't have that much money to buy a house. I don't want that house prices that much. Definitely, I will buy this Blackwood House. Who is the owner of the house? Cooper, Mr. Warley, Miss Warley's brother. But you ought to find another house. There is a house on Pool Road. Cooper says, the owner of the house is Mr. Warley, Miss Warley's brother. But you need to find another house. That's better. I have another house on Pool Road. Norton, I don't want it. Norton says, I don't want that house. I want this Blackwood House. Cooper, listen, Dr. Norton. Suppose you buy Blackwood House. Then in the middle of the night, every night, the white visitor comes into your bedroom just when the clock strikes 12. Will you like it? Will you be happy there? Cooper warns Mr. Norton, Dr. Norton, that, listen, Dr. Norton, if you buy that Blackwood House, the white visitor will visit you in the middle of the night and you will be scared to see that sight. When the clock strikes 12, the white visitor comes. So, you like that scene? Can you imagine that scene? Will you be happy there? You cannot be happy there. So, please don't buy that house, says Cooper. Norton, I don't believe the stories. I don't believe in ghosts and I don't believe such kinds of stories. Cooper, well, don't come back to me later and say that I didn't warn you. Suppose you can't sleep there, what will you do? Cooper says that you will regret for your decision. Mr. Cooper warns Dr. Norton that you will regret for your decision if you buy that Blackwood House. Because if you can't sleep there, how can you live there? What will you do there? Norton, sell it. Dr. Norton says, I don't care, you just sell it. Cooper, my dear sir, think. Everyone here will know that you have bought Blackwood House. They will also know that you want to sell it after you have been there a week. They will want to know why. If you don't tell them, They'll know that you have seen the white visitor. Norman will give you £1 for Blackwood House after that. Now, this house is on Pool Road. Cooper again and again warns Dr. Norton that, Sir, if you buy that house, you can't sleep there. That white visitor or the ghost of Miss Warley will visit you at the middle of the night, and you will be scared to see that sight, and you can't sleep there properly. So please, I warn you, don't buy that house. And if you want to sell the house after a week, you can't sell it, because people will think that you are selling the house just because the white visitor has visited you. That is why the people will think that you are selling the house just because of the white visitor. No one will give you £1 for Blackwood House after that. So I am suggesting you, I will prefer another house for you. It's on Pool Road. Norton, will Mr. Warley let me sleep in Blackwood House for one night before I buy it? Then Dr. Norton asked Mr. Cooper that, can I buy the Blackwood House after sleeping one night before I buy? Cooper, I don't know, but it's not the house for you. Cooper says, I don't know that, but the house will not be suitable for you. Norton, please write and ask him if he is ready to. Let me do that. I'll spend Tuesday night there. Norton says to Mr. Cooper that, please ask Mr. Warley that he can give that house. He can allow Dr. Norton to stay one night before buying the house. If it is so, he can spend Tuesday night there. Cooper, where will you sleep? There are no beds in the house. Cooper says, you can't sleep there because there are no beds in that house. Norton says, I'm an old soldier. I have a small bed that I used in the war. I'll take it with me to the house on Tuesday. Norton says, I am a soldier. I have a bed with me, which I used in the war, and I will take that bed with me to the house on Tuesday. Cooper says, there isn't any light there. Do you want to spend a night in that house without a light? No, my dear sir. Then Cooper discourages this Dr. Norton that there is no light in the house, and how can you spend a night without light? No, please don't buy that house. Norton, I have a small lamp. I'll use that. Now please write to Mr. Warley and ask him. Norton says, I don't have any problem. I have a small lamp with me. I will use that. Please write to Mr. Warley and ask him whether I can stay one night before buying the house. Cooper says, well, I'll write if you wish, but I don't like this. I don't like it at all. Cooper says, well, anyway, I will ask Mr. Warley, but I don't like this. I don't like your decision. I don't like it at all. Scene 3. A bedroom in Blackwood House. It is 1 minute to 12 on Tuesday night. Dr. Norton is reading in bed by the light of a small lamp. His suitcase and some clothes are on the floor. Now, scene 3. The setting of scene 3 is in the bedroom of Blackwood House. It is 1 minute to 12 on Tuesday night. That means it's going to be 12. Just 1 minute left for 12 o'clock. Dr. Norton is reading in bed by the light of his small lamp. His suitcase and some other clothes are lying on the floor. Norton, looking at his watch. Well, it's almost time. The clock strikes 12. 12. Now the visitor from the other world will come, if she ever comes. He hears a sound just outside the bedroom door. What's that? The door opens slowly and quietly. What's happening? He sits up. Something dressed in white from head to toe enters and stands near the door. Who are you? What do you want? Now, Norton notices that it is almost time. That means the clock strikes 12. Now the visitor from the other world. Now it's a time for the ghost to come. If she comes, if she ever comes. So that is the time of the ghost. He hears a sound just outside the bedroom door. At that time, he hears a sound outside the bedroom door. What's that? He asks, what's that? What's happening? He asks, what's happening? He just sits up, something dressed in white from head to toe. Some figure dressed in white from head to toe enters into his room. Then Norton asks, who are you? What do you want? Visitor, go. Visitor says, the ghost. Or the dressed up white figure says, that is a visitor. Right. So, visitor says, go. Norton, no, I won't. You go. I am busy. I am reading. Norton says, no, I will not go. I am busy. I am reading now. Visitor, slowly with long pauses between the words. This is my home. You must leave now. Usually we see in ghost stories, the ghosts are saying like this, right? There will be a pause in between their talking. So here also the ghost is saying that, or the white visitor is saying that this is my home. You must leave the house. That white figure asks Dr. Norton to leave its house. It says the house is its own. Norton, go away. I want to finish this book. Norton says, you go away. And I want to finish my book. I'm just reading now. You just go off. Visitor, fear is coming to you. Fear. You need to fear me. You need to be scared of me. Norton, I am not afraid of you. He throws his book at the visitor. The visitor moves its head out of the way. Ha, you are afraid. Dr. Norton jumps out of bed and pulls the white cloth off the visitor's face. Mr. Cooper, good evening, Mr. Cooper. How are you? Norton says, I am not at all afraid of you. He throws his book. He was reading a book, right? He throws his book at the visitor, the white figure. The visitor moves its head out of the way. It just moves its head. Ha, you are afraid. Then Norton says, now you are afraid. Dr. Norton jumps out of the bed and pulls the white cloth off the visitor's face. Dr. Norton just jumps off his bed and it removes the cloth off the visitor's face. Mr. Cooper, good evening, Mr. Cooper. How are you? And Norton just he pulls off the white cloth of the visitor's face and he finds it is Mr. Cooper. And he wishes him, good evening, Mr. Cooper. And how are you now? Cooper, why did you do that? You ought to be afraid. Cooper says to Mr. Dr. Norton that, why did you do that? And you need to be afraid of me, right? Norton, please sit down, Mr. Cooper. I am very glad to see you. Very kind of you to come. It's rather late for a visit, isn't it? Why did you come? Dr. Norton asks Cooper, or says Cooper to sit down. I am very glad to see you. You are very kind of you to come, and it's very nice to see you at night in my room. It's rather late for a visit, isn't it? You are very late, but still I am very glad to see you now. Why did you come? Why you come to my room now? Cooper, I didn't want you to buy the house. Cooper says, I don't want you to buy the house. Norton, oh, the price is only £1,000. If I buy the house for £6,000, you will get more money, won't you? Norton says, the price is only £1,000, right? If I buy the house for £6,000, you will get more money, right? Cooper, that wasn't the reason. Cooper says, that was not the reason. Norton, then what was the reason? Norton asks, then what was the reason? You are saying that not to buy the house. What was the reason behind that? Cooper says, I wanted the house for myself. Cooper says, I wanted this house for myself. I wanted to buy this house for myself. That is why I'm saying you to not to buy the house. Norton, well, why didn't you buy it? Then Norton asks Cooper that, why didn't you buy it? Then, why didn't you buy it? Then Cooper says, the price was falling. I have 200 at the bank, and the bank was ready to lend me another 600. That's 800. But the price is 1,000. I wanted it to come down another 200. Then I could buy it. Then Cooper says, I don't have enough money to buy this house. I have just £200 at the bank, and the bank was ready to lend me another 600. Then also it will become £800 only. But the price of the house is £1,000. So I can't afford that much price. So I wanted to wait for the rate to come down another 200. Then I could buy it. I see those stories were helpful, weren't they? Perhaps you started them yourself and you wanted me to tell everyone that the white visitor came to see me. Well, I can tell everyone the name of the visitor now, Cooper. Now Norton says Norton is making fun of Mr. Cooper. Why? Because Dr. Norton identified the white visitor is Mr. Cooper himself. So now Dr. Norton is saying to Mr. Cooper that now I can tell everyone the name of the visitor is none other than Mr. Cooper himself. Cooper, please don't tell anyone, Dr. Norton. I will lose my business. Then Mr. Cooper is saying to Mr. Dr. Norton that please don't tell anybody that it is me, it is me who is the white visitor. If you do like that, I will lose my business. So please don't tell anybody that the white visitor is me. Norton, why didn't you think of that before? Now, good night, Mr. White Visitor Cooper. I want to finish my book and go to sleep. I'll come to your office tomorrow morning and buy the house. Good night. Norton says, why didn't you think of that before? Why didn't you think of your think about your business before? Now, but it's the time to say good night. Mr. White, he calls Mr. Cooper Mr. White Visitor Cooper because he identified the white visitor is Mr. Cooper himself. And he says, Norton says to Mr. Cooper that I want to finish my book, I want to finish my reading, and I want to go to sleep. I'll come to your office tomorrow morning and I need to buy the house, buy the Blackwood House, and says good night to Mr. Cooper. Thus the play ends. So we have finished the chapter Blackwood House. You need to go through the conversations between Dr. Norton and Mr. Cooper and try to write down the summary of this play. The work for this chapter is you need to write down the summary of this play. So that's for today. Thank you.